Maggie. I have an infertility diagnosis due to premature ovarian failure. In today's video, we're going to talk about the donor egg IVF process that we're in the middle of right now, and what that is, why we're choosing to do that, and what our experience has been so far. So to start off with what donor egg IVF is, it is the IVF process, only the donor will do the egg retrieval portion, and myself, the intended mother, will do the embryo transfer portion and carry the baby. And then the male, my husband's part, would be the same. So they'll create the embryos with my husband's sperm and the donor eggs and grow those, and then implant the embryo with the transfer. So that is the basic rundown of the process. Then as far as picking a donor, there's a couple different ways to do that. You can use an egg bank, which would have eggs that have already been donated from an egg donor, and then you could pick from there. I'm not as knowledgeable on that because I'm using the other option, which is an egg agency, where you pick out a donor and then they do the transfer. But there's egg banks out there as well that usually are, from my understanding, more ready to go, but you might not get as many eggs. So with the agency, you pick out the donor, then they do the retrieval. So you do have to wait for that retrieval, but the hope is that you get more eggs and hopefully therefore embryos. There's a lot of numbers that go into that, but the goal would be to get a whole retrieval worth of eggs to make those embryos, and then be able to have multiple children that would have the same mother for the transfers. So that's the goal, and that's what we're hopeful for. So as far as why we're doing donor egg IVF is for premature ovarian failure. There's very few options for treatment. As a patient, I have to skip right to IVF if I want to be the carrier for the child, and then with the IVF I can either do an egg donor or I can do an embryo adoption. With embryo adoption, the embryo wouldn't be genetically related to myself or my husband, so we're going to start with the donor egg IVF, so we can have that opportunity to have my husband be genetically related to the child, and then we could also do a gestational carrier that we could do the egg donor or an embryo adoption for, and we could also move on to adoption or foster care as well. So we're open to different options, and there's different options available. Right now we want to start with the donor egg IVF, and we're really hopeful for that to work out, but also open and just seeing what life brings. So one thing that I'm really excited about is the opportunity to carry the child, even though it wouldn't be my egg. As far as carrying the child, my husband brought up something that I thought was really cool and beautiful, because I was sad and mournful of the fact that it wouldn't be my egg. He learned that the woman carrying the child would pass some DNA onto the child. I believe that's through mitochondria. I'll link an article below that kind of explains the science behind it, because I'm by no means a biology expert, but some DNA is passed from the person who carries the baby onto the baby. So in a naturally occurring pregnancy, that baby is a little bit more genetically the mother than the father. So I thought that was really cool and really gave me some comfort in this process. So I'm really excited about that. As far as our experience, we are using the egg agency, like I said, egg donor agency. Like I said, our clinic actually has an egg donor agency as part of the clinic. So we'll use that agency. They have a website of profiles of potential donors. It's kind of like an online dating experience. You can see their profile. The profile has current pictures of the donor, It has baby pictures of the donor, some family history, education history, that sort of stuff. They also answer some short answer type questions, so you can kind of pick based off of appearance, a kind of history, ethnicity, that type of stuff you can pick on, and then just kind of read what they've written and find some sort of connection. As far as the screening for suitability, the doctor's office does that, so I wasn't really making a decision based on that, because that I'm leaving that up to the doctors to do. As far as what they do, I can kind of get into with our experience. So we're currently on our third egg donor pick to get one through the screening to move forward with the process. We had our consult with our IVF clinic back in August of last year, and we picked a donor, I believe in October is when we made a pick. And then the first step for the donor is to do day 3 testing. That day 3 testing will have some blood work. They'll test the FSH levels, AMH levels, LH levels, and estradiol, and they'll also do an ultrasound. So there's usually a bit of waiting to get to that day 3 testing, because it has to be on the specific day of the donor's cycle. And then the first donor we picked, she missed the appointment. She was sick for the first day 3, so then we had to wait till the next day 3. And then it was determined that her follicle count was lower than what they would want for an egg donor. It would be fine for her. She'd be fine to get pregnant, but as far as donating eggs, wouldn't quite be where they would want it to be. So then we moved on to donor pick number 2. I believe that was in January. Her doctor recommended that she not go through a cycle at that time. I believe she had recently been through a different cycle, so that donor also didn't work out. And then we picked our next pick, and then while we were waiting for her day 3 testing, COVID hit, and then the clinic had to close. So that everyone, I'm sure, in the spring of 2020 has been affected by COVID in some way. That's how we were affected, is that the clinic was closed for a little while. So that's what we were dealing with, but now the donor has gone through her day 3 testing, and we're ready to move forward in the next steps of the process, just waiting to get that scheduled. She needs to do an in-person evaluation with the clinic, where they will do genetic testing, blood type, a pap smear, drug screen, psych evaluation, and FDA screening. The FDA screening has to be done on anyone who's donating tissue, and that will test for STIs, HIV, and hepatitis. So that will be the donor's next step, and as long as that all looks good, she'll move on to the egg retrieval, and as to do a cycle of medication before the egg retrieval, but that'll all be one big step, so to speak. And then next steps for us is that my husband will be doing, he has to get genetic testing, and then also have to provide a semen sample to make the embryos once they do the egg retrieval. As far as what he's already done, he's done some blood work as well and a semen analysis. So that's what he's done. So he'll be going out to the clinic as well for that. So there's a million more steps to do, but that's where we're at currently. In conclusion, the donor egg IVF, adds a layer of complexity, because you have not only myself, my husband, and the clinic, but also the donor to work with. But I'm just beyond grateful for women who are willing and able to be egg donors, that they'll give that gift to our family. So just so excited to move forward in the process and to document this. Please reach out to me if you've been through donor egg IVF or any type of IVF. I'm very interested. Also, if you've been an egg donor, that would be interesting to hear that story. Or if you found this video informational or helpful, I'm very interested to know that as well.